Hey guys, this is part 2 in my building Ultimate Woods Ball Gun series. So today we're gonna assemble the axe after applying conformal coating to the eye board in the previous video. So okay, and this is the base. Let me zoom out slightly and focus. There we go. Alright, so another little suggestion I have is you can buy aluminum duct tape from hardware stores. You can use normal duct tape, but this aluminum duct tape stays on for a very long time. Then use a little bit of alcohol and a swab to remove all the grease off the solenoid. Make sure your solenoid is turned in all the way in, and so is the air tube. If you're trying to secure your air tube, if you have a leak, for example, here, make sure you only grab it in this spot and you use like needle nose pliers. Do not grab it by the O-ring, because if you scuff up this metal here, you're gonna have very bad seal, and you're gonna have a leak inside your grip. So this here just keeps the wires away from the trigger, because the trigger actually moves here, and originally the wire was kind of rubbing against the back of the trigger, so eventually it'll wear through the wire and short your gun out, and if you're on the field it'll suck bad since you can't play. So let's look at the board here. Okay, so this is my board. It's you can see it's conformal coated, and let's install it into the gun. So this is the upper tube. Make sure there is no, if you have pets, make sure there's no pet hair on this ring. Make sure there's no dust, dirt, any breadcrumbs, and so on. Because if you have no seal here, your gun will leak on the inside, obviously, and it's going to be really painful to pain in the ass to take it apart. So there you go. So I've installed the eye board. Make sure that's in focus. Alright, there we go. So eye board is in place. You can see there's very little grease applied to the O-ring. Basically, you put a little bit on your finger and you spread it around. Another thing I made for this is I use a syringe as a grease gun. So let me find it. Oh, there it is. Alright, so what I did is went to a drugstore, bought this 30 milliliter syringe, and buy as big of a needle as you can get. This one is 18 gauge, I believe. So it has, I'd say, about 0.7 to 1 millimeter hole on the inside. So you don't want anything really small, because it'll be impossible to push the grease out. And for grease, I do use Planet Eclipse grease. I recommend it. I don't know. It's just, some people prefer other brands. I do prefer Planet Eclipse. So, for example, if I want to grease really small components, there's a little bit of air. I'm still fighting to get it out. But you can see I can deposit very small amounts of grease, and then you'd use your finger and basically dab the O-ring. And that's it. That's all you need. You don't need like smear this channel in grease. Make sure you don't have no grease in those little holes, because that's where your air comes out. And you know, if you have air standing in the airways, it's going to get blown into components where you might not want to have grease. So let's assemble this whole thing. Okay, seems like I'm missing something. Am I missing something? No. Kind of difficult to do this on camera. Alright, but there we go. Okay, hopefully my wrench is still here. Okay. So there we go, we have a nice fit. This tube goes inside the O-ring on the breech or the main body. Start with those two screws here right next to the solenoid. When you turn your Allen wrench, make sure you do not scuff up this O-ring or the metal again, because if you do, your gun's gonna leak. So you can see it's right close there. So I want to take it out. If you have one that has a ball at the end of it, like a Allen wrench with the ball end, that's what you want to use, because you can use them on an angle. I don't have one right now, unfortunately, so I'm gonna be using this regular one. Okay, so it's done. Okay, and then you would put an Allen wrench that way and just give it, you want it kind of finger tight, but you don't want it too tight, because the screws are stainless steel, I believe, and you're putting them inside aluminum, and I find that they bind up over time and become very difficult to remove. So same thing here, put it in. That's it. You can apply small amounts of blue Loctite. Don't apply the strongest, I believe it's red color Loctite, because you will never take your gun apart. You'll actually strip the Allen wrench or strip the screws here, and that'll be the end of it. So just one more screw here. Again, be extremely careful not to scratch your air tube, because if you do, you'll have to buy a new one. So I bought this gun used, and actually one of the problems was that all the screws were loose here, and they were loose not from someone taking it apart actually, but from, I guess they vibrated loose. I don't know, maybe it was taken apart, but the tube was definitely loose, and the guy told me that the gun was leaking, and that's why he basically dumped it. So it was a minor fix for me, and I got a good deal on it. That's another thing about guns. You know, if you have money, obviously, yeah, do buy new. But if you're on a budget, go hit used sections on the forums, and you can get pretty good deals. You have to be careful, because you can get guns that require extensive repairs, and actually you'll end up paying more in parts and waste more time than buying a new one. So this especially with really, really old guns. If you buy an SP1 for say $50, a used SP1 for $50, you might end up spending, you know, $80 to $100 on solenoid, and you know, solenoid is $29, and you know, it might have some other problems. So basically it'll be totally not worth it. So I'm having difficulty putting the screw in. Let me see. All right, there we go. So like I said in the previous video, Empire Axe is my choice of a reliable and relatively inexpensive gun. In all fairness, I know I'm gonna get flamed for this, there is nothing $1,500 guns do that the Axe doesn't. So yeah, you can have Bob Long, or you can have a DM14 or whatever, and I promise you, it's not gonna shoot brittle paint better than the Empire Axe. It's just not. I mean, yeah, there is a chance it might break paint that Bob Long G6R, for example, doesn't break, or DM14 doesn't break, but the odds of that are extremely low. So, you know, don't waste your money unless you're being sponsored. I don't see a reason of spending $1,500 if you're, you know, I'm talking about speedball. If you're playing speedball, no reason whatsoever. So anyways, there's my gun fully assembled. So let's put the grip on. This important part, make sure the pins here mate with the connector properly. If you just slam it in, you're gonna destroy either your main board or your eye board. Most likely it's gonna be the grip board, because that's where the pins are, and the pins would get bent. You'll be hard pressed to break the connector. I'm a dumbass and forgot to put the bolt lock, so I had to take the gun apart again. So I just put the 2 screws here, and the gun is fully assembled. And let me show you another upgrade I did. So changed the bolt from a factory bolt to what's called Lurker bolt. I just Google Lurker Paintball, and you'll come across their website to buy one. It was 29 bucks, I believe, plus shipping. I think it's a good investment. It's not a must-have like a lot of people claim. It is a little bit easier on the paint. It moves faster, so these pros and cons to it. You have to install. You have to change the O-rings here. There seems to be actually confusion on the internet about how those things should be assembled. So these 3 O-rings need to be changed, and then you put this metal, basically a bolt catch or bolt damper in the back, and there's 3 more O-rings on here. 2 of them are the same size, 1 of them is a different size. Follow the manuals from Lurker, and there's a gap here. Some kids have a really big gap and the bolt kind of catches on it. So the solution to that is take it apart and then sand the inside of this like a half ring. You can see it's just 2 half rings. So sand the inside until you have no gap. So, and the bolt should slide more or less freely over this thing. And do make sure that you install the spring properly. The spring and axe is tapered, so this side is actually wider and this is narrower. So the narrow part goes over the bolt, the wide part goes in the breech. Another thing, you can have, if you have like lines, scores on your bolt, that might be from the spring grinding your bolt, whether it's a stock bolt or aftermarket bolt like this Lurker bolt. Just take a Dremel tool and very gently put a really fine grinding disc, very gently rub it here this way on the inside, just to take the sharp edge of the spring. So I had to do it on my Planet Eclipse ESA, because the ESA spring was really grinding the body and the bolt, and I had actually metal dust on the inside. So, but that fixed the issue. Yeah, ESA spring is really, I believe it's stainless steel or some sort of plated metal, but it's really really hard metal, and it's really rough on aluminum breech. So a Lurker bolt, the reason why I put this on, it allows me to drop the pressure a little bit and increase efficiency. I've seen some videos, kids claiming that they drop the pressure to 140 psi, but you'll be hard pressed gaining 300 feet per second at 140 psi, even with this bolt. So I'm running about 160, 180, 190 if I'm shooting large barrel and small paint. So this adjustment here on the back will help you to a certain degree, but after that it doesn't matter. So if you take it out all the way, your velocity will not increase. So you will have to up the pressure. But is it worth 29 bucks? Yeah, if you have the money. If you don't, just stick with stock bolt. This bolt doesn't do anything magically, significantly better than stock bolt. So if you want to support a local company, do buy the bolt. Or not a local company, but I mean, if you want to support the paintball industry, a small company in paintball industry, do buy this bolt. If you're in a budget, stick with your stock bolt. It'll work just as fine. So I'm storing this in this box during the winter, so the O-rings are not compressed and the spring is not compressed, which I highly recommend doing so. If you're storing any spring-loaded guns in winter time, take the spring out. You can probably leave the bolt in the gun, it'll be fine, but I do keep it because it keeps the O-rings round instead of flattened on the side from long-term storage. But that's it. So I'll see you in part 3.